All right, so this last one is just kind of a different idea that I had. Maybe give you guys a little bit of reaction on our thoughts for the Ted Bundy Files, the Netflix documentary. Billy hasn't watched it. He's aware of the situation, and he probably sits up late at night researching Ted Bundy and weird things like
Absolutely.
that. But I actually watched a little bit of it. I didn't finish it. Talked about it. He said that he had watched it, and so I went back and finished it all up. So I'll kind of give you the floor again since you were the first one to kind of watch it. So just,
Yeah.
were you aware of the whole in and outs of the Ted
No,
Bundy?
I knew that he killed like probably. I thought he killed a few people. I didn't know he killed that many people. And I thought it was mainly just the one area like out west. I didn't know that he had escaped from prison and then like continued his killing in like Florida and all that. And then it was just fascinating how they caught him in Florida, but he was like this big fugitive. They didn't know who he was when they had
I
him in
know that's
Florida.
crazy, isn't it? Now
Yeah.
they would know who you were in like
That
10
seems
seconds.
impossible
They'd be
now.
like, "Oh, Facebook,
Yeah.
this fool was shooting YouTube live."
It was really disturbing. And it's like I never really got into like researching serial killers like some people do. Some people really have a fascination with that. But
Yeah.
it's
Like
For
me on
sure.
third shift.
Yeah. I was aware of the Ted Bundy situation. I was aware of how many people he killed. The states. I was not aware that he escaped from jail twice. I knew
Yeah.
that he escaped while he's in Colorado. I did not know that he had escaped twice. So he escaped once through a window, and then once through a tiny little vent that he had actually starved himself and climbed out of. And that actually kind of brings up a segue. Really, we need to shoot a video sometime on talking about how my grandparents were robbed by the most wanted man in America, because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the same
yeah,
way
yeah.
that he did it. He
Yeah.
starved himself and then went through a vent. So coming back to Ted Bundy, yeah, I was aware of it. I actually read a book called The Stranger Beside Me that was written by Anne Rule. She actually worked with him in one of the little crime prevention jobs that he had.
Yeah, that's another crazy thing. He had a job like what did he make the pamphlet or something too that they used for the
Yeah,
program?
yeah. And they said that that actually gave him a leg up because he was in the offices and he saw the statistics on when crimes happen, how they happen, the districts that they happen,
Yeah.
the reaction time, all of that stuff. And so that actually gave him kind of a leg up. I thought was pretty creepy. I was not aware of the brutality of the crimes. You know, he's such a little guy. I figured that he just kind of weaseled his way through everything, which it seemed like that's kind of
Yeah.
what he did. But they showed some of the schools and some, I guess, some of the crime scene photos, and it looked like he had actually just busted pieces of the school loose. So I assume he wasn't big and strong enough to do that with his hands. So I assume that typically he must have been using something else. But you did research a little bit of serial killers, or not real deep, or
Enough to know what
what's in your pocket right here? I want to make sure that this. You got an ice pick, bro?
maybe.
um, so you kind of know a little bit about the.
I've got an idea of
Yeah.
a lot of them. My brother is he's into actually like researching them and like.
So my
some of the
brother is a
schools.
serial killer.
Well, it just runs in the
Well,
family.
I was a criminal justice major for like a year and a half, so I actually kind of researched a little bit into it for that purposes, and then kind of later into my adult life. One thing that I did remember about it was that he actually kidnapped a 12-year-old little girl.
Hmm.
He was kind of like unraveling, and he didn't really have an MO or a pattern he was following anymore. And you know, do you think that it makes it different to the way that people react? Because the reaction to the younger girl was so visceral, and it seemed like when it was just the older girls, obviously people were shocked and outraged, but not to the level of a younger child. What 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 is your thoughts on that? Does it like, is your reaction different? Because I know, as being a father, of two little girls, like, I was pissed off. I was like,
Mhm.
give me the chance to flip the switch, and I would have on this dude. Is it the same reaction for you too, or
It is. I'm like.
I wasn't sure if it made it different because I was a
No,
father.
I'm like super protective over children, and I see that people like that will like take advantage of them where their mind's not fully developed, and they are able to say things to lure them in, and it's just that people like that will find a way to do that,
They're just wolves.
yeah, and they see something innocent, and they just try to pull it in, and it doesn't surprise me at all with the track record and stuff that some of these people have, but, I guess it's just where they know that the children have, their minds aren't fully developed, and people like teachers and, their parents can try to teach them things, but those people still find a way to say things to get them lured in.
Yeah, it's like their sick gift.
Yeah, and it's, they've got a manipulative mind, and it's sickening, but I do feel the same way that you do about it, because, I feel that all children are innocent and
Right.
shouldn't be messed with.
I just didn't know if my reaction, because I was pissed when I found out about it, and it was so brutal that they didn't show any crime scene photos. They said that
Right.
there was just blood all over the van. And
See, that makes me more upset than actual adult women.
and they're both tragic.
Yeah, they're
but
both horrible, but
Yeah.
the
for whatever
children
reason,
aspect,
it's just more of a
the children
reaction.
aspect is just, that's way too beyond.
One thing I didn't look up is they didn't say if the guys that when he got loose the second time, if like the jail or anybody else faced any kind of like who got fired.
They really didn't say anything
No.
about the first one.
Well, the second one though, they said that if something happens, then they would leave whoever's responsible like up to criminal charges. I wonder if that ever happened or anything, 'cause it's insane.
I don't know. It
that-
was so weird because apparently there was an apartment in the level above them that was for the guards, and that's what he
Yeah.
climbed into. He put some of the guards' uniform on, and then walked out the front door.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. That's pretty wild that he was able to do that. I don't think that there's really,
Yeah.
there's obviously repercussions for somebody being like, Ted's in the library. Well, he jumped out the window. I probably should have been watching him, but for somebody that starves themselves enough to crawl through a vent, it looked like it was like 8x8 or
Yeah.
something crazy.
And the first one, when he escaped, he lived out in the woods for like
Yeah,
3 days or
that
something.
didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
He lost 25 pounds.
Yeah, because he didn't have any food and it was cold and then
He was not a Boy
elevation.
Scout apparently, even though he
Yeah.
went to Boy Scout camp.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know what you think about the whole psyche of everything, because even in the end, he was like representing himself in court, and I know that you got a little bit of a taste of like a law background, like do you think that there's something that the court should have done to be like, look, dude, you're not fit to stand trial or put their foot down, or is it just so much of a God-given right that they really can't do something like that? Because he was
Yeah.
like questioning the detective of
Yeah, that was a weird
it was so
part of it.
strange. He's like questioning the detective about like what he saw, and he was like kept repeating, and then tell me what you saw next. How was her body face? What did she look like? And so it was like he was reliving it through the detective.
Yeah.
And so to me, I thought that was over the bounds of being able to, represent
Yeah.
yourself in the court of law.
Yeah, I mean, you got natural rights as a citizen to do that, but and the judge tried to, the judge did his part and said, that he didn't.
But should there have been
Yeah.
like a deeper psychological evaluation, because all the psychiatrists that saw him were like, this dude's not well.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think that they could have stepped in and be like, this dude is not well, even though he seems like he's well spoken, he's obviously way off in left field and should not be.
I don't think that they cared enough for him at that point.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't either.
I feel like at that point, they were just like, let him do his thing.
Yeah,
He's
we're gonna
done.
throw him in the
Yeah,
chair.
he's
He's,
done.
he wasn't worth
Yeah.
the taxpayer dollars
Right.
that they're spending on him, to be honest with them. And I'm always shocked at like how the family reacts, and like all these groupies that he had following him, and his mother sitting there saying, I just don't think he was capable of this. And they were showing the bite marks with his teeth exactly, and where there's smoke there's fire, and there was so much smoke around this dude, it was like coming out of his ears. And she's still like, I just don't think old Teddy was capable of it. I'm like, what world are you living
Yeah.
in? Like, this is probably why he is the way that he is, because
Mhm.
you're so like way off in left field. So I talked to one guy, and he's like, I watched half of it and I felt so dark after watching it. I had to turn on The Office like immediately. Did you feel that way?
No, I've been like a crime drunk, like documentary crime like show stuff
Yeah.
like Kick lately. Like I've been watching the new season of True Detective. I watched that the new one, what I call it, Disappeared or Abducted in Plain Sight.
Yeah.
That's one you are talking about manipulators and children and stuff. That's what That one's real crazy. There's some like real crazy stuff in it.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I'm ready for that one.
yeah.
I've been watching Criminal Minds. I've always kind of leaned towards crime stuff as well. You know, we talked about Anne Rule writing The Stranger Beside Me. She also wrote a really good book on the Green River Killer. And no, he wasn't as smart and sophisticated as Ted, but the fact of the matter is he killed a lot more people. He got away with it for a lot longer. You know, he stopped killing for a long period of time, which, you know, him and BTK are pretty much the only two people that I know that have kind of stopped for a long period of time that were known serial killers. So I'd really like to see one on him because I don't think there's enough information out there.
Yeah.
I just think it's wild that like such a little corner of the planet Earth has two of the, you know, most well-known serial killers of all time, and
Yeah.
Bundy and Gary Ridgway.
And then they never found the what was the one killer? Zodiac killer.
Yeah,
They never
that's
found
California
him.
though. You know, California's its own beast. I'm not sure that
Yeah.
that was one person.
It's Ted Cruz, isn't
Do you know anything about Gary Ridgway,
it?
the Green River Killer?
I've heard of it, but I haven't really looked
Yeah,
into
you
it.
should read the book. I've got a book that I read before called Chasing the Devil. I'd really like to read it again. And you know, Bundy kind of played games in his last days. You know, giving up victims,
Yeah.
admitting that he did it. And that's kind of the same thing that Ridgway did. He actually lived with the FBI, and he would take them back to the crime scenes and kind of relive them.
I'm sure you'd have some kind of ego to it too. That they want to like boast about it.
Well, they said that Ridgway was different in that sometimes he couldn't even remember the victims and where he buried them and all kinds of stuff just because there were so many of them. He had his kid with him. You know, like I said, he stopped for a long period of time. He wasn't very smart. It was just.
Yeah,
kinda
Ted
weird.
Bundy, the one too. The other ones that kind of surprised me are like the ones he got in broad daylight. The women he got
At the
at the
beach.
lake. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's kind of. There's a very similar situation to the Zodiac. You know, Zodiac snuck up. It's on a lake, almost eerily similar to Bundy, and you know that's when I think he stabbed him when he had the gun, and there was a woman and a man. I don't remember which one survived. I think the woman survived. But
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I saw the movie. It's been a long time. And I
Well,
left
they
from
haven't
it.
really made a good movie on that,
No.
but yeah. So I'll probably be watching them in the future. I'll probably have to space them out. I don't know how much darkness I can handle. But like I said, being a dad, just had such a visceral reaction to seeing that little girl, and that's the reason I let my kids play outside. The neighborhood's full of kids right now, running up and down the street playing and everything else, and not a lot of parents out. And you know, I don't care if I get called weird and my kids get called weird. It's just not worth it for me, especially after watching this stuff, to let my kids out. So, but yeah, so I guess that's kind of the conclusion. Any last words, Glenn?
No, I just got some new serial killers I'm gonna have to research.
Cool.
Get back with you
Cool.
guys.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole podcast on serial killers.
Did you all watch the Fire Festival documentaries? Have you all seen
No.
those? Oh, okay. We'll save that for
We need to
another
watch
time.
that one next
Yeah.
because I'm really interested because of Ja Rule's involvement.
Yeah, I watched both of them. There's one on Hulu.
Yeah,
There's
you
one on
told me.
Netflix.
Tell me the one on Hulu wasn't very good though.
No,
right?
the Hulu one was better than
Oh,
the
the Hulu
Netflix
one was
one.
better.
Yeah.
If y'all rules in, I'm there.
Yeah, it's in both of them.
Well, we'll get on that right now, but we'll see you guys later. Maybe do some after Super Bowl reaction stuff. But just gonna kind of hang out and